Bonsoir. Vidéographe est heureux de vous présenter ce soir la programmation virtuelle La bonne distance, concoctée par la commissaire Alexandra Laudo. Les vidéos qui sont proposées ce soir ont été créées par des artistes d'Espagne et d'Amérique latine et abordent les concepts de règles, de lois, de prohibitions, la manière d'interpréter celles-ci et des défier par action politique. Alors, chaque vidéo, il y en a 5 au total, vous seront introduites par Alexandra. Bon visionnement!
Bonsoir, je m'appelle Alexandra Laudo, je suis une curatrice, j'habite à Barcelone. Et je suis désolée parce que je ne parle pas français, je suis actuellement étudiant le français, mais je suis encore nulle. Alors j'ai décidé de faire cette explication, cette argumentation de ce programme en anglais. Upon invitation of Vidéographe, I've created a small video program that presents a selection of 5 works by Spanish and Latin American artists, who all of them reflect upon the concept of rule or law, or even upon the idea of prohibition, but not considering it a fixed thing, but thinking about it as something that allows a space for negotiation and interpretation, and that has its gray areas, and therefore it allows to go around them. In Catalan, in my language, there is a saying that says "feta la llei, feta la trampa," which could be maybe roughly be translated in English as every law has its loophole, and invites to think us about the fact that once a rule or a law is made, almost simultaneously is made also the way to allow someone not to follow it and still pretend to be in a context of legality. I was interested in this idea, in these practices that maybe we could describe as cheating, which do not suppose to break the law very explicitly and in a very evident way, but which allows us to be within the law and escape at the same time the corresponding penalties of not following that rule specifically. It's a way of not following a rule or not following a norm and still keep an appearance of legality. And normally the figure of the cheater, the person who cheats, is in the popular imagination not well considered. It has some negative connotations, of course, because he's supposedly someone who breaks the social contract and establish order for his own benefit, while affecting the benefit of the rest of the society, the collective benefit, let's say. However, I was interested in reviewing this idea and maybe thinking from a new perspective about the figure of the person who cheats, about the person who breaks the law and still is able to avoid the penalties of doing that under the current circumstances of Spain, the current political and economical circumstances of my country, in which, as you probably already know, there is a lot of political and economical corruption, and sometimes, like, the politicians themselves, the people who is in the power, are the first ones to break the rule and not follow the rules. Considering this, I was interested in maybe thinking about these practices of cheating under the light of what some thinkers like Hannah Arendt or Jürgen Habermas, for instance, have described as civil disobedience practices. I was thinking that maybe these practices could be understood in the current circumstances as ways of or forms of political resistance, as strategic manifestations of dissent, and as practices that presented an alternative to just simple confrontation. Well, all the videos that are presented in this program think about this practice of cheating and about its critical potential as a disguised form of subversion, or as a response to existing regulatory structures, and as a manifestation of the rejection to a normative order. The first video of the program is The Permit by a Spanish artist and filmmaker, Leon Siminiani, and it is part of a larger work, a larger video series, which, under the name Key Concepts of the Modern World, present an ironic vision of the culture and ideology of the United States. In this specific chapter or video work, Siminiani explores the notion of permit, and using a structure of a tale or a fable, he invents some sort of historiography around this concept, and proposes a specific classification of human beings according to the relation they establish with this notion, with the notion of permit, and in general with the idea of authority. He presents a poetic exploration of ideas such as authority, and also transgression, obedience, and legality. And he establishes a link between this notion of permit or authorization and the bureaucratization of society. The whole idea is presented not through a literal illustration of the facts that are narrated through a voiceover, but through some images that in a way contrast with what is narrated. They are images filmed in 60 millimeters in the city of New York. In a way, his video, Siminiani's The Permit, works as some sort of introduction to the four following videos, in which there is the idea of not following and transgressing the rule or the norm.
According to the Webster Dictionary, the permit is determined when one person solicits the approval of another in order to do something. It is recognized by the academia that the permit meant the arrival of the modern era. For this reason, present human communication occurs on a binary basis. In the ancient era, there were two social groups: A, servants, B, heroes.
The second video of the program is Shabbat Shalom by a young Spanish artist, Marta Burugorri, who made this work while enjoying an artistic residence in Jerusalem. It is an attempt to explore the relationship between religious belief and prohibition, but from a very humoristic perspective. On the Judaism, on the practices of Judaism religion, observing the Shabbat is one of the most crucial and important things. The Shabbat is a day absolutely dedicated to resting and to the family and to the spiritual matters. And it is also a journey in which there are a lot of activities, very specific actions that are prohibited, that can be performed. In Jerusalem, where she was doing her artistic residence, the Shabbat is announced through a very, very loud siren that can be heard all throughout the city, and that lasts just for the period of 1 minute. Burugorri tried to perform all the activities that would be prohibited during the Shabbat, just during this short period of the siren. in the moment in which the siren could be heard. She attempted to do these actions one after each other at very great speed, and the result is some sort of like slapstick video or comic work that, however, also invites us to think about the ambiguous nature of this period of time that precedes the Shabbat or announces the Shabbat. Is this period of time part of the Shabbat as well? Is it, on the contrary, outside of religious jurisdiction? These are questions that this video invites us to think about, and in a way, it is a very humoristic approach, or a good humor challenge to religious law that, however, is protected by this room or this space for interpretation that each rule, even religious rules, allow. The next video is by Luz Broto, also a Spanish artist. It has a long name, Ensayo 02, ocupar la totalidad del espacio en un día no laborable, superando el aforo máximo cifrado por la licencia municipal de funcionamiento. And Broto is an artist who is interested in exploring the potential of using artistic practices to break the rules and the social habits that concern the use of architectural spaces, and mainly of public spaces. And in this video, she documents a performance that she made for the Madrid Art Festival, in which she invited anonymous people of a specific neighborhood to gather together on a certain day at a certain time in a specific bar. Any bar or any public venue has a maximum capacity that is established by municipal regulations, and the proposal of Broto was that these people would exceed the maximum capacity of this specific bar. It could be regarded as a kind of like a simple or even innocent action, but despite its subtlety, is a substantial act of civil disobedience. It implies inviting a group of citizens to clearly break regulation that is set by municipal authorities, and it also, in a way, challenges the impositions through which the government or certain codes regulate our behavior as individuals in public spaces. The Value of Absence, Excuses to be Absent from Your Work Center, is a video by Cuban artist Adrian Melis, which represents a reflection on the gray areas that surround labor laws in Cuba. There, the financial system and the production means are controlled by the socialist regime, and there is a certain lack of incentives for work, and at the same time there is a certain degree of permissiveness of the state, which has resulted in a very usual practice from employees of inventing or making up excuses in order to not go to work. It is not just like an explicit or clear non-justified absenteeism. It is a way through which employees create a rationale or an argument that forces their employees to accept it because it's made on the basis of supposedly an honesty and a cordiality. Melis, what he did was to invite certain people who wanted to not go to work and give an excuse for that to give the copyright to their excuses to him. So he recorded them calling to their work centers and explaining their reasons, their made up or invented reasons for not going to work, and paid to them the same amount of money they would have earned if they had gone to work. Therefore, there is like a complex strategy through which the unproductiveness of these employees turns into a rewardable activity, and at the same time, it places this practice, however, in the black market because it's a rewarded activity that is not contemplated on the official workforce.
Buenos días.
Buenos días. Oye, ¿quién habla por ahí?
La recepcionista.
Ah, es Niuka, ¿no?
Sí,
Ah, oye, Niuka.
dime.
Mira, necesito que me hagas un favorcito ahí, mami, mira. El otro día salí del ladro
Sí,
y me he caído en la bicicleta y parece que tengo un esguince. Él mismo fui al ortopédico
sí.
y el hombre, el doctor me dijo, no, mira, tienes un esguince.
Sí.
Entonces necesito que le comuniques a Fernando que no podría ir durante 7 o 8 días.
Sí, pero es que Fernando no se encuentra, pero bueno, le puedo dejar el recado.
Ah, está bien, está bien. Bueno, necesito que se lo comunique, ¿oíste?
Está bien, no te
Sin
preocupes.
falta.
Bueno.
Acuérdate que hay reunión en estos días.
Sí,
Y
entiende.
voy a tener que faltar a ella.
Está bien.
Bueno.
Bueno, chaito, cuídate.
Chao. Ok.
The last of the videos is Pedophilia, also by a Cuban artist, Levi Horta, who, as well as Melis, he keeps on exploring the challenging of certain rules within the context of the Cuban political regime. In Pedophilia, we see an excerpt of a children's TV program in which 5 characters dressed with very colorful and outlandish clothes introduces what is a regular section or part of their show, and which is known as the gallery, a part of this TV program in which drawings by different children are presented to the TV spectators. What Levi did was to draw himself a series of drawings of pictures, and he sent them to the TV, saying that they were the drawings of his students, a group of children with special needs that had done this with a lot of effort and that would be so happy if they saw their drawings on the screen. Apparently they are quite innocent and innocuous drawings, but if we give a special and closest look to them, we discover how they, in a way, refer to certain issues of Cuban political regime and social situation that, although they are not officially recognized, they are kind of like known by everyone. Some of the drawings, for instance, allude to things that are critical questions and that cannot be officially discussed, but that in a way they are recognized on a popular dimension. For instance, we see a landscape of La Habana with the Malecón, and on the back there are some buildings, and in some of them we see satellite dishes, or within the homes we see computers, which reveal how population subvert certain prohibitions that are imposed by the regime. Or in another drawing, for instance, there is like a portrait of the Che Guevara looking very old, which could invite us to think about the possible caducity or obsolescence of the values of the revolution. Or there is another drawing in which there is a ship that with the flag of the USA, in a reference to the influx of Cuban immigrants to the United States. And finally, we see also a drawing of a very young girl, wearing a very provocative red dress and high heels, which put allude to child prostitution and to sex tourism in Cuba, and which relates with the title of the video. It's interesting because it's an exercise in which Levy used an institutional official channel of communication to broadcast information and certain knowledge that are commonly known, yet they are officially censored normally.
Hoy comenzamos con María Fernanda López Fuentes. Ella cursa el tercer grado de la escuela Miguel Gutiérrez, vive en Santa Clara, Villa Clara. Continuamos con un lindo dibujo de Dailin Rodríguez Valdés. Tiene 6 años, cursa el primer grado de la escuela Juan Vitalio Acuña y dedica su dibujo a toda su familia y a nuestro rincón.